I declare that the 577th Convocation of McMaster University for the conferring of degrees is now in session.
Please be seated. Good afternoon. I'm Dr. Doug Welch, Vice Provost and Dean of Graduate Studies. This afternoon, I have the great pleasure of welcoming all of you, graduands and guests, to this convocation ceremony. Before we start our formal program, may I first ask everyone in the hall to switch off any electronic device that may ring or beep during the ceremony. I would like to start by recognizing and acknowledging that we meet today on the traditional territories of the Mississauga and Haudenosaunee nations and within the lands protected by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Agreement. I would also like to take this opportunity to acknowledge some of the notable leaders joining me on stage today. Dr. Suzanne Labarge, Chancellor, Dr. Patrick Dean, President and Vice Chancellor, Dr. David Farrar, Provost, Vice President, Academic, and today's Master of Ceremonies, Dr. Susan Searle-Giroux, Vice Provost, Faculty, Ms. Mary Williams, Vice President, University Advancement, Dr. Paul O'Byrne, Dean and Vice President, Health Sciences, and Associate Vice Presidents, Associate and Assistant Deans, Chairs, Directors, faculty members, and honored guests. I'd like to take a moment to draw your attention to some of the highlights from the Faculty of Health Science from this past year. This will be the first graduating class of the Master of Science in Child Life and Pediatric Psychosocial Care, a highly unique healthcare professional program and the very first of its kind in Canada that trains individuals in pediatric psychosocial care assessment and interventions. Also, a number of graduate student leaders are graduating as former graduate student ambassadors for health sciences and health sciences affiliated programs. This graduate student ambassador program was launched in September 2015, and it offers individuals a unique opportunity to show leadership during their graduate work to serve as student representatives for their programs. I would like to now call upon our Chancellor, Dr. Suzanne Labarge, to make her own welcoming remarks.
Welcome, honored guests, staff, faculty, families, friends, and most importantly, graduands. This is an exciting day for all of you who are graduating today, as well as for all those people who have supported you and stood behind you, and in many cases have had a key role in you being here today. You have achieved a great deal to get here, and you should all be very proud of your success and looking forward to what the future might bring. Congratulations, and enjoy the ceremony.
I'm David Farrar. I'm the Provost and Vice President Academic of the university, and I have the great pleasure of being your Master of Ceremonies for this afternoon. I would now like to introduce Dr. Patrick Dean, President and Vice Chancellor, who will be presenting our honorary degree recipient.
Chancellor Labarge, by the authority of the Senate of McMaster University, I have the honor to present Sir Rory Collins. Sir Rory Collins has used the evidence provided by large-scale randomized trials to assess the clinical safety and efficacy of a number of treatments for vascular disease. His work has improved the health of tens of millions of people worldwide and made tangible contributions to the prevention of millions of heart attacks and strokes. As he has pursued those goals, Dr. Collins has assumed a number of prominent professional roles. A professor of medicine and epidemiology at the University of Oxford, he is also the head of the Nuffield Department of Population Health at the University of Oxford, the principal investigator and chief executive of UK Biobank, co-director of both the MRC Epidemiology Unit and the Clinical Trial Service Unit and Epidemiological Studies Unit, joint director of the Cancer Research UK Epidemiological Studies Unit, and honorary consultant to the Oxfordshire Primary Care Trust, and then Oxford University Hospitals Trust. In the 1980s, Dr. Collins was one of the vanguard scientists exploring the power of large-scale randomized trials and quickly became an advocate and champion of this approach. His research focused mainly on the treatment of acute heart attacks, antithrombotic treatments, and blood pressure, often working with key collaborators, including Sir Richard Peto and McMaster's own Salim Yusuf. Dr. Collins has also contributed significantly to our understanding of the effects of blood lipids on arterial disease and the safety and efficacy of lipid-lowering statins. One of Dr. Collins' signature achievements was his work as coordinator of the International Studies of Infarct Survival megatrials. The second of these trials identified a relatively straightforward process involving the administration of clotbusters and aspirin that reduced in-hospital mortality of heart attack patients by nearly half. This is now common cardiological practice worldwide. More recently, Dr. Collins has led the research that has dispelled false negative beliefs about the relevance of LDL particles to occlusive vascular disease and to demonstrate that statins are safe and effective. He even shepherded the cholesterol treatment trialists collaboration that has united data across studies and institutions and led to scientific breakthroughs that have reduced heart attacks and strokes around the world. By 2012, Dr. Collins had become the most widely cited clinical medicine scientist in Europe. A Fellow of the Royal Society, Dr. Collins is also a Fellow of the Royal College of Physicians Faculty of Public Health and an Honorary Fellow of the RCP Faculty of Pharmaceutical Medicine, RCP Edinburgh, and RCP London. He has received numerous awards, including the European Award for Excellence in Stroke Research, the Prix Raymond Bourgine for Achievement in Cancer Research, the Medical Society of London's Fothergill Medal, the Pfizer Medal for Innovative Science, and the Queen's Anniversary Prize for Higher and Further Education for the University of Oxford, all before 2007. In the last decade, Dr. Collins has also received the J. Allen Taylor International Prize in Medicine, the European Society of Cardiology Gold Medal, the British Cardiovascular Society Mackenzie Medal, the Royal College of Physicians Ambuj Nath Bose Medal, and the International Okamoto Award from the Japan Vascular Disease Research Foundation. He received his knighthood for services to science in 2011. Madam Chancellor, I present to you a champion of evidence-based medicine and a scientist whose work has extended and saved millions of lives around the world. I ask that you recognize these contributions by conferring upon Sir Rory Collins the degree Doctor of Science honoris causa.
Sir Rory Collins, by the authority of McMaster University Senate, I have the great pleasure to confer upon you the degree Doctor of Science honoris causa at McMaster University with all the rights and privileges pertaining to that degree. Congratulations. We'll get to the sign over here. And I would now like to invite Sir Rory Collins to deliver the convocation address.
Thank you. Madam Chancellor, President Dean, Dean O'Byrne, and honoured guests, family and friends, and most importantly of all, graduates. It's a great honour to receive an honorary doctorate from McMaster and to be asked to give this address on such a special day for everyone here who's just graduated, and of course all the people, family, friends, and faculty who've helped them to do so. In preparing to say a few words, I thought it would be prudent to listen to the speeches of a couple of recent honorands. After all, as a medical researcher who has been involved for the past 30 years in the use of meta-analyses of previous studies to help guide future research and patient care, it seemed appropriate for me to adopt a similar approach to developing my address. However, the chief effect of that was to be daunted by the task of coming anywhere close to matching the insights and the eloquence of those previous speakers. Speeches at ceremonies like this are typically used to impart advice. However, my own experience is that some of the most successful decisions I've taken has been to ignore advice. My final school report said, and I quote, "I wish him every success. He would do well to sublimate his rather cynical and anti-establishment views on entering medical school, however." I would have preferred the use of a different word instead of cynical, perhaps something more like critical or questioning. But with respect to the charge of being anti-establishment, I remain convinced that questioning the status quo, whether it be related to the way that research should be done or which treatments do or do not work, has served me well. For example, much of what I did learn at medical school about the causes and treatment of heart attacks turned out to be incorrect. At that time, it was thought that heart attacks were caused by some sort of electrical instability, and that the blood clots found in the coronary arteries that supply the heart muscle occurred after the event. However, as is now known, those blood clots are actually the cause of heart attacks. And by reviewing the results of previous small randomized trials of using clot-dissolving drugs in the emergency treatment of heart attacks, and then testing those findings in a much larger and hence more reliable trial than had ever been conducted before, working with, as was mentioned, one of your professors, Salim Yusuf, and my close colleague in Oxford, Richard Peto, we were able to show that clot-dissolving and clot-preventing treatment halved death rates after a heart attack. That research was certainly anti-establishment. Clot-dissolving treatment was considered by the medical establishment to be not only ineffective, but also dangerous because it could cause bleeding. And the idea of doing a trial of treatment that involved nearly 20,000 patients was thought to reflect statistical naivety, not clinical wisdom, since it was stated with great definiteness that the effect would not be worth knowing about if it was required to do a trial so big to detect it. So much for perceived wisdom. As well as those results leading on to the high-tech approaches for opening up blocked coronary arteries, such as angioplasty, which involves putting a narrow tube up into the vessels of the heart, blowing up a balloon to open up the obstruction. Treatments that are used in high-income settings. Those clot-dissolving and clot-preventing treatments, which we discovered were beneficial and are much simpler and far less costly, remain the most common emergency treatment for heart attacks, particularly in resource-poor countries and in those patients who can't get to hospital where they can get high-tech options quickly enough. As another example of not taking advice, halfway through medical school, I got the idea I'd like to study mathematics in greater depth, and to be specific, to learn more about statistics. Now, here at McMaster Medical School, there's been a tradition since its inception in the 1960s of evidence-based medicine and the use of statistical methods. But at St. Thomas's Hospital Medical School in London in the 1970s, That was certainly not the case. And my tutors asked me to explain what statistics could possibly have to do with medicine, and advised me instead to focus on anatomy, physiology, and biochemistry. However, again, ignoring what was certainly well-meaning advice, I spent the following year studying statistics at George Washington University in Washington, D.C., where I became enamored with the application of statistics to medicine, and in particular with the magic of the randomized controlled trial. Introduced into medical research in the 1950s by Sir Austin Bradford Hill for the reliable and unbiased evaluation of the effects of treatment. Indeed, so enamored was I with the power of randomized trials that soon after finishing my initial training as a doctor, I persuaded Richard Peto to take me on for a year to do research in Oxford. My peers at medical school thought that I was crazy for stepping off the career ladder. House officer, senior house officer, registrar, senior registrar, consultant in a hospital, or primary care physician. But it turned out to be a year that never ended, allowing me to follow my curiosity through a program of research that is still ongoing. At one point early on, though, in that program, I thought I'd better insure myself against something going wrong, against the research opportunities drying up. So I sought advice from Sir Richard Doll, who, with Austin Bradford Hill, had first identified the link between smoking and lung cancer, and was, at that time, probably the most eminent epidemiologist in the world. He strongly recommended that I should undergo formal training in public health medicine. However, when I looked at what it would entail and how it would effectively mean not doing research for some years, I decided to ignore his excellent advice and take my chances. I realize that this has been a somewhat long-winded way of saying that seeking advice is probably a good idea, but that taking it may well not be. Why might that be the case? Well, it strikes me one possibility is that although the person giving the advice will almost certainly be trying to provide the best informed advice they can, it's not something that's going to be affecting them directly. It's analogous to that old adage about the difference between a chicken and a pig in bacon and eggs. The chicken is involved, whereas the pig is committed. As a consequence, the person giving advice may be either less risk-averse because it will not adversely affect them, and indeed they may get vicarious pleasure out of someone doing something different and more exciting despite not being willing to do it themselves. Or alternatively, they may well be more risk-averse because it's safer to advise people to follow well-trodden paths, even if it's not really the path for you. And perhaps that's where the fundamental problem with advice arises. Someone else, however wise, however eminent, however well-meaning, can't really know what really matters to you, what drives you on. Indeed, you may not even know consciously yourself. So any advice will be based on an incomplete knowledge of the pros and cons of different options for you, rather than for some kind of notional average individual. As I said at the beginning, some of the best decisions for me, both professional and indeed personal, have involved ignoring advice. That's not to say there has not been advice that I took which has had good outcomes, or indeed less than optimal outcomes that have occurred through ignoring good advice. But it does suggest that all advice should be treated as just that, advice, not instruction. Consider all the options, seek lots of advice, but decide for yourself. Now that you've graduated and you're thinking about all of the options that opens up for you, make sure that what you do is something that really matters to you. In that respect, I'd like to end with a story told to me by a colleague about a junior doctor for whom he was acting as educational supervisor. His trainee came into him one day in his office and said to him, "I want to be famous. What can I do to avoid having to do all of this training and all of this research before I'm well known? How can I become famous now?" My colleague's advice was to the point. He said, "Get out and get on with your work." But at least from the perspective of his trainee, the decision to ignore that advice has paid off. He is now famous, albeit in a small way for his opinions. But in medicine, what really matters is not someone's opinions. It's making real contributions to improving the health of individual patients or populations. For example, Andrew Wakefield is famous for claiming falsely that the MMR vaccine causes autism. and his fame continues to harm children in developed and particularly developing countries where getting measles as a consequence of not vaccinating can be severely disabling or life-threatening. That's not a fame worth having. In 2010, a survey of 1,000 16-year-olds found that more than half didn't want a career, they just wanted to become famous. And more than a fifth planned to reach their goal by appearing on a reality TV show. Only 1 in 6 said they wanted to go into medicine or nursing. You're in a minority. As George Monbiot wrote in the Guardian newspaper in the UK last December, and I quote, "An obsession with celebrity does not lie quietly beside the other things we value. It takes their place." A study published in the journal Cyber Psychology reveals an extraordinary shift appears to have taken place between 1997 and 2007 in the US. He goes on to say, in 1997, the dominant value, as judged by an adult audience, expressed by the show's most popular among 9 to 11-year-olds were community feeling, followed by benevolence. Fame came 15th out of the 16 values tested. By 2007, when shows such as Hannah Montana prevailed, fame came first, followed by achievement, image, popularity, and financial success. Community feeling had fallen to 11th, benevolence to 12th. So in closing, whatever you do next, here's my unsolicited advice, which, given my previous advice, you should most certainly feel free to ignore, is avoid the lure of celebrity or of get-famous quick schemes. Instead, I hope that you find something that really fulfills you and that benefits other people. And if you do, then I also hope you have the determination to pursue it wholeheartedly, irrespective of any advice you may get not to do so. In closing, I would again like to thank McMaster for awarding me an honorary degree and for you for listening. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sir Rory. I think I'm going to have to stay away from the platitude that we welcome his words of wisdom. But I do want to say is I think what we heard today is why we wanted him to join the McMaster family. He's an eminent researcher, a thoughtful individual, and we are just absolutely delighted to have him join the McMaster community today. So thank you very much, Sir Rory.
Dr. Patrick Dean will now come forward to present graduates to our Chancellor for admission to their degrees.
Will the graduands please stand? Madam Chancellor, on behalf of McMaster University Senate, I present to you these candidates and those in absentia in order that you may confer the appropriate degrees upon them, and I bear witness that they are worthy and suitable.
Graduands, by my authority and that of the McMaster University Senate, I have the great pleasure to admit to those before me today and those in absentia to their individual degrees at McMaster University, with all of the rights and privileges pertaining to those degrees. My sincere congratulations to you all. Please be seated.
Graduates, I now ask each of you to join me on stage so that the Chancellor and I may welcome you to the McMaster community of scholars.
Ladies and gentlemen, so that each graduand's name can be heard, it would be appreciated if during the presentation of the graduands, you would hold your collective applause to the end of each degree category. Thank you. Madam Chancellor, may I present to you the following graduates of the degree Doctor of Philosophy. Sonam Bhatia. Sarah Lalise Kilmurray. Jennifer Lau. Brian Richard Tunema. Fiona Whelan. Leanne Bridget Gillespie. Christina A. Madison. Carlos Alberto Garcia. Mohammed Sofikil Islam. Zhojing Zin. Bruno Kavik. Hudson Redden. Elena Sangaris. Yan Zhang. Matthew John Atherton. Ahab Ayob. Rachel Edith Carlisle. Lisa Chu. Amy Joan Hector. Rocky Lai. Amanda Lee. Xiaoxing Lin. John Paul Oliveria. Badwell, Maria. Oh, we go. Manreet Padwal. Deandra Parker. Vivek Phillip. Irene A. Rabalka. Richard Van Krijken. Barbara Jane Cunningham. Michelle Phoenix. Madam Chancellor, may I present to you the following graduates of the degree Master of Biomedical Discovery and Commercialization. Ariba Athar. Stephen Capitano. Rachel Fong. Ricky Goschel. Banvir Singh. Sherry Yang. Madam Chancellor, may I present to you the following graduates of the degree Master of Science. Amjad Arabi. Amanda Gemma Henrik. Ricky Lally. Linda Yu. Michelle Lai. I'm doing this one too. Victoria Ann Marco. Margarita Ann Rashev. Arthur Oscar Ciron. Wang King Wendy Ye. Gloria Solim Kwang. Courtney Lauren Rosenbaugh. Caitlin Francis Ross. Mervat Fahim Adel Hadi. Mona Abdullah Al Ray. Ali Arianjad. Wael Haddad. Malihe Hashimer Kazar. Kevin Huang. Chloe Catherine Jaden. Maria Kran. Salim Mod Arif. Mamatha Masku. Hamidi Nasa. Roxanne Patel. Bintuja Puvanamdam. Zarin Rashid. Dolraj Sigdel. Mohammed Zaid El-Kanani. Oriziogan Akaporno. Elmira Amarazdozi. Anandita Banik. Tamara Chow. Salma Rashid Chowdhury. Aaron David Edward. Kyoung Fan. Caitlin Federick. Sarah Franklin White. Selena Hussein. Edgar Ilyasov. Sarah Abdelruf Ismail. Rania Nabil Jabber. Ashley Emily Hansentoe. Gautam Karishnev. Sharania Kuganisen. Searing Kalden Lama. Tazreen Mona. Alina Musaboy. Lindsay Taylor Newman. Andrew Wynn. Ruhi Parmar. Kosha Patel. Christine Michelle Peterson. Yelena Poliksik. Jahangir Sartaj. Shivani Sa. Isha Sharma. Mitchell Daniel Schiff. Japteg Singh. Adam Miles Strub. Teresa Aves. Salwa Faruqi. Sarah Louise Hitt. Kevin Seguin Kim. Umer Afzal Majid. Thera Sultan. Grace Hoylam Tang. Yu Wu. Michael Kwan Zhu. Dina Zaratkar. Portia Susan Callan. Magdalene Kuzinski. Janet Elaine Maggio. Allison Michelle Sohaniel. Donald James Baston. Valerie Bertram. Chad Brown. Mohammed Imtiaz Karamat. Sohail Hassan Mahmood. Safa Niel. Pavithra Puthrasa Rathi. Ryan Potts. Danielle Vitali. Salam Amar. Jonith Joshua Christopher. Sarah Elizabeth D'Angelo. Stephanie Victoria Diago. Marguerite Eldridge. Pamela Fellbaum. Leah Emily Habinski. Shahir Naz Haji. Sana Mahmood. Leanna McCallum. Eileen Victoria Murphy. Ifeano Mary Ochiacha. Sweta Patel. Lena Pignatelli. Sonia Scholarkos. Erica Elise Sertic. Jennifer Stockdale. Annalisa Avarta Voskamp. Jacqueline Walmsley. Heather Michelle Whitfield. Carly Whitmore. Sarah Rose Blake Lee. Najin Chaco. Anya Hanna Cholsky. Tara Lynn Liang. Gloria Lee. Linda Wynn. Isabel Bragnaca Rodriguez.
Madam Chancellor, may I present to you the following graduates of the degree Master of Science, Occupational Therapy. Nicole Amodeo. Marianne Patricia Meredith Ashley. Courtney Alexandra Burgart. Nicholas Leandro Blenick. Caitlin Brockington. Casey Lynn Cadeau. Amy Yue Chiai. Lauren Chan. Nicole Felicia Chan. Michael William Cianconi. Taylor Eleanor Corelli. Sarah Victoria Darmanin. Elizabeth Fallowfield. Laura Christine Fisher. Lauren Heineken. Caitlin Melissa Haino. Adele Caldaway. Ashley Sarah Kirk. Jacqueline Kirkconnell. Glory Lockyi Kwan. Cynthia Lau. Allison LeBlanc. Caitlin Lewis. Catherine Sarah Liston. Emily Colleen Isabel Malone. Jenna Nicole MacArthur. Brianna McClelland. Jillian McWhinney. Kyra Michelle. Deanna Antoinette Mora. Montana Kelsey Mullane. Christine Mary Newbingen. Alexandra Michelle Oswald. Mansi Patel. Alana Patone. Allison Rawling. Carolyn Marie Rocca. Caitlin Hannah St. Pierre. Militia Stoyanovich. Chelsea Alexandra Shaw Tidd. Pauline Tran. Elise Trudell. Samantha Tuahema. Anna Viter. Caitlin Pauline Walsh. Riley Lynn Witkowitz. Madam Chancellor, may I present to you the following graduates of the degree Master of Science, Physiotherapy. Thomas Douglas Abbas. Grecia Lisette Alanis. Christopher Archangel. Dana Christine Ashby. Leah Cristina Barrero Damata. Sarmina Baskarin. Caroline Beecham. Rachel Therese Bayer. Michael Peter Bokus. Aislinn Brown. Brandon Matthew Breuer. Gregory Brown. Kimberly Caporici. Rianne K. Carlton. Jessica Alexandria Chin. Alexandra Tenny Danks. Yasmin Panik de Groot. Audrey de Jong. Christopher Michael Degas. Hillary Deverell. Tyler James DeSimone. Heather Elizabeth Dowling. Bianca Fong. Ellen Jane Janveri Gillespie. Eva Habrowski. Catherine Hare. Carolyn Anna Elizabeth Head. James Darcy Drew Heenan. Glenn Hemstock. Kaylee Nicole Houston. Samantha Hugh. Sharon Jerushika Jebaselvin. Alexandra Emma Kaiser. Aaron Robert Kipp. Rachel Ellen Lee. Allison Lilico. Sarah McKellar. Jessica Mailer. Tahira Mascarenas. Caitlin McLeod. Saba Marabhani. Kelly Moher. Shauna Neal. Matthew Scott Nickel. Kathleen Odurmura. Alicia Page. Joseph Michael Pagliaro. Sarah Michelle Peruza. Katrina Marie Verdasio. Amanda Michelle Saunders. Sami Mukhtar Sash. Kristen Charlotte Saint-Hilaire. Caitlin Thompson. Brittany Albertina Van Dyken. Jiayu Wang. Kirsten Weber. Caitlin May Warren. Andrea Yallen. Kendra Young. Alicia Zavalia. Madam Chancellor, may I present to you the following graduates of the degree Master of Public Health. Joyce Hay Tung Chan. Tamika Jarvis. Conrad Tomas Lisne.
Madam Chancellor, may I present to you the following graduates of the degree Doctor of Medicine. Emir Thomas Ali. Tyler James Folds. Ariane Golami. Joshua Ji Sang Wang. Megan Joy Louise Legros. Cheyenne Shasavar. Mary Tong. Da Zhu. Nasim Zamir.
Madam Chancellor, may I present to you the following graduates of the degree Bachelor of Science in Nursing. Arunima Deb. Megan Yakimchuk. Shirley G. Lin Lin. Lisa Rachel Manes. Nicole Danielle Milady. Carolyn Pearson.
Madam Chancellor, may I present to you the following graduates of the degree Bachelor of Health Science Honors. Richard Vin Kang Win. Madam Chancellor, may I present to you the following graduates of the degree Bachelor of Health Sciences. Sama Anvari. Janatani Balakumaran. Lauren Elizabeth Beals. Sophia Kalkoven. Ananditi Das. Ashley Tiffany Chi Yi Gott. Jennifer Wynn Herman. Michelle Veronica Huang. Arshia Javidan. Richa John. Sarah Jones. Kevin Anthony Caravelio. Sean Kahn. Abby Kiribarajan. Brian Wanjun Lee. Young Lee. Zinglin Lee. Victoria Liu. Christina Ma. Faith Michael. Kian Nanji. Maxwell Carlton Eng. Michael Keon Paravisian. Mithunan Ravindran. Daniel Soyid. Ramachandran Sethuraman. Chen Chen Tian. Kristen Viaje. Jean Wang. Zichi Cindy Wong. Kristen Wright. William Yao. Clement Young. Cabri Yu. Vivian Udo.
Madam Chancellor, may I present to you the following graduates of the degree Bachelor of Health Sciences, Physician Assistant. Matthew Seth de Fleurio de la Collinaire. Evan James Earl. Jessica Ellens. Maggie Hitchin. Connor Jones. Nadia Karam. Saskia Newell. Frances Lee. Vanessa Martino. Janine Anton Maloney. Kim Nguyen. Tan Nguyen. Emma Victoria Wallace. Katie Waite.
Let's give one more round of applause to all the graduates for the class of 2017. Ladies and gentlemen, I would now like to introduce Gauthan Krishnaraj, a Master of Science graduate in health, in global health, who will be delivering the valedictory address.
Dear Madam Chancellor, Mr. Vice Chancellor, Provost Farrar, faculty, deans, staff, students, graduates, and loved ones. It is my honor to be addressing you today as the valedictorian for the Faculty of Health Sciences graduate class of 2017. It is surreal simply to be here. Just over a year ago, I stepped foot on campus for the first time, and just a few days ago, I was on the Swahili coast of East Africa, wondering how ridiculous of an idea it would be for me to start my speech to a class of science graduates with spoken word poetry. But if you'll allow me to indulge in this unconventional expression that I hold dear, I promise you, much like I promised my thesis advisor, that, if you bear with me, there's a point at the end. It has been said that being a poet is a condition, rather than a profession, a genetic predisposition to hearing love songs in the lub-dubs of a mother's mitral valve, the sweet salve of heart sounds, inspiring verse. Before birth, I'd say, Doc, I think I've got this condition. Signs include seeing beauty in both calligraphy and cardiography. I still dream of the day I'll stitch together symptoms like synecdoches to deliver dire diagnoses paired with comfort in couplets. You could call it the parable of the health practitioner poet. It is penned by the policymaker who writes in pentameter and narrated by the nurse while the therapist rehabilitates rhythms into our bodies following the final stroke of the storytelling surgeon's needle who stitches together our skin to keep poetic lifeblood within. And then they lean down and they listen. They listen for the breath because their inspiration comes from the poetry of the body and the body of poetry, from ATGCs to ECGs, health policy to epidemiology. The number of similes that health scientists can come up with for a smile are endless, like a sunrise, like a beacon, like a promise, like a poem. And to bring that poem to a patient's lips in the face of trial or tribulation, heartache or hardship is the goal of the health sciences. So whether we stand at the benchtop, boardroom, or bedside, we all share one fundamental condition of being human, and I believe that that is poetic. Class of 2017, I urge you to remember that you are human. The isolating nature of graduate studies often draws us inwards, and somewhere between the drafts and the defenses, we forget what we've dedicated it all to. In the face of an increasingly individualistic society, there is something beautiful about the health sciences that is dedicated to the betterment of our society, of the lives of others. I urge you to remember that you are human, and to remember those for whom we work and from whence we draw our inspiration. At a time where automation threatens countless industries, there's something intrinsically valuable about the health scientists that begs for the human touch. It calls for the physician who stays the extra hour and the nurse who stays the extra 10, for the epidemiologist who travels to the far reaches of the earth to capture inequality, and the public health specialist who seeks to address them. And of course, for my fellow global health practitioners who try to do it all and do it everywhere. As computers continue to outdiagnose doctors and algorithms automate our daily lives, it is our capacity for compassion, our desire to do good, and our ability not only to cure, but to care for another human that will remain relevant. Class of 2017, I urge you most to remember that you are human when you fail. As I stand here on this stage, I think back to the countless "we regret to inform you," or "the candidate pool was exceptionally qualified this year," that will never get me to a speech on a stage like this. I think of the RBC Students Leading Change Scholarship that supported my graduate studies, but also of the 3 years prior that they turned me down. As you step forth on your ambitious paths, whether you're looking for a job or holding out for medical school, I remind you, remember that you are human. So pursue your passions, keep the promises that you make while surfing at sunset, write a poem, and practice the one thing that matters the most: being human. I'd like to thank a few of the people who have reminded me of this during my graduate studies. My supervisor, Dr. Lisa Schwartz, Dr. Elise Nouvette, Matthew Hunt, and my parents, who have supported me on all of my adventures despite Global Affairs Canada advisories. I'd also like to thank all the friends made in the beautiful moments along the way. I look forward to seeing what wonderful things you achieve, and I thank you all.
Thank you, Gautam. May I now introduce Anna D'Angela, a 2013 Arts and Science graduate and a 2017 MBA graduate. Anna is a representative of the McMaster Alumni Association and will now deliver the Alumni Association address.
Chancellor Labarge, President Dean, McMaster faculty, fellow alumni, honored guests, and especially members of the McMaster class of 2017. Not long ago, I was actually in the audience at Convocation receiving my degree instead of sitting on this stage. And even having gone through this twice, I will tell you that this Hamilton place looks very different, much scarier, standing up at this podium, so bear with me as I get through this address. To the newest members of the McMaster Alumni Association, I want to welcome you to the Mac alumni family on behalf of more than 180,000 members who have come before you. It's a very big, very diverse group, and I know that you're all going to fit in just fine. Right now, you might feel like there's no big reason to stay connected to the Alumni Association, but I can promise you there is. Especially in your first few years after graduation, the association can do a lot for you. Our Mac 10 program, for example, provides social activities, career assistance, as well as online and in-person networking. We've even added a mentoring program that gives you access to the wisdom of hundreds of Mac grads, and a career services program that include advice and support from our very own alumni career counselor. You'll be getting emails from Chris and Scott, who coordinate these programs for us, and this is where you'll learn more about Mac 10 and other alumni programs. So pick and choose those opportunities that really speak the most to you. The association can do everything from connecting you to an alumni hangout in a new city to helping you get a great deal on insurance for your first car or apartment, which, having gotten my apartment insurance through the association, I can attest that you get a great deal. I won't run through every opportunity the association provides. There's way more information at mac10.ca and in the emails you'll be getting. And plus, as Mac grads, I trust and I know you're all very capable researchers. But instead, let me finish by encouraging you to stay connected. You'll receive Mac, the Alumni News Magazine, and Maroon Mail, our e-newsletter, and you can also be part of the association's communities on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and even LinkedIn, which I hope you've all started building. So keep in touch. I hope your relationship with McMaster continues beyond the moment you return your graduation gown, and that the university is part of your progress, your story, and your life for a very long time. This is just your beginning. But know that we may not always be there with you. Mac will always be there for you. Congratulations on your accomplishment. Enjoy this great day, and welcome to the McMaster Alumni Association.
Thank you, Anna. May I now invite Dr. Dean back to the podium to deliver his President's address.
Madam Chancellor, distinguished guests, esteemed colleagues, graduates, ladies and gentlemen. About 18 months ago, from the same podium, I spoke to a graduating class such as yours about the nature of the relationship between education and society. That occasion was informed by the final report of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission of Canada, which had recently appeared. And I wanted graduates to understand that the dark history of residential schools in this country was profoundly relevant to them, not only as human beings for whom the suffering of others must always be relevant, but as the beneficiaries of a quality education and as the educators of the future. While education, understood in the abstract as the cultivation of human potential, must always be a good thing, one cannot say the same for the institutions through which societies seek to educate their members. One lesson of the residential schools in Canada is that when education becomes deliberate acculturation, it can be antithetical to the well-being of individuals and thwart their potential. Instead of building healthy communities characterized by diversity and respect for difference, such institutions compel homogeneity and encourage intolerance. They serve the political interests of the state rather than the good of society, if I can put it that way. That universities exist to serve society has been taken for granted in the Western academies, at least since the 18th century, when belief in the value of building great public universities took hold in Germany and spread to North America. In the United States, the Morrill Acts of 1862 and 1890 established the so-called land-grant universities for the public good, providing instruction in what was called agriculture and the mechanic arts, which would bring immediate economic benefit to the community as well as education in the traditional liberal arts and sciences, which would empower the individual and in the long term redound to the benefit of society at large. The Canadian university system is overwhelmingly a public system. The country's top 15 research universities, or the U15 as they're called, amongst which McMaster ranks first for research intensity, are all public institutions deriving significant operating revenues from the public purse and established under provincial legislation or, in at least 2 significant cases, royal charter. 80% of all university research conducted in Canada occurs on U15 campuses, and the value of that is about $8.5 billion a year. The U15 universities confer more than 75% of all PhD degrees awarded in Canada, and therefore provide the bulk of the country's research and development labor pool. And they contribute more than $36 billion to the Canadian economy every year. Now, these figures tell you 2 things about the system from which you're about to graduate. One is that a consensus exists in this country that higher education is vitally important for the national good and therefore worthy of public support at all levels. And the other is that those of us privileged to work and study in these institutions have an obligation to mobilize what we have learned and what we have discovered for the good of our communities. And just as we derive moral as well as material support from our city, our region, our province, and our country, the benefits of our work should accrue in each of those spheres as well. My hope today is that you will pause to think about the idea of community, about particular communities, such as the ones you come from, the ones you've been a part of during your time at McMaster, the one you joined by becoming a McMaster alumnus, the others you will enter when you leave here, and about how you can best take your lessons learned and skills developed in this community and turn them to the benefit of your new and future ones. I made a distinction earlier between community, society, and state. And I implied that although educators and public educational institutions have obligations to all 3, their relations with the state as a political entity can be seriously problematic. Indeed, they can be hazardous to the integrity of their mission. And that is where the doctrine of academic freedom intervenes. As Wilhelm von Humboldt, credited as the great architect of the modern research university, wrote in 1810, quote, "The state must understand that intellectual work will go infinitely better without it." Because, by and large, such an understanding does prevail in Canada, universities enjoy a comparatively high degree of autonomy and have been able to establish themselves as privileged communities that are both places of learning and an ongoing experiment in social formation. And by that, I mean the following. By virtue of being self-governing, largely unencumbered by the challenges of non-academic communities, bound together by a clear and compelling mission, and afforded certain protections by society in order to do the work that society needs to have done, university communities have the potential to model a kind of social ideal. That is why institutions like McMaster commit themselves to progressive social values, to equity and inclusion, to democratic and collegial processes, to mutual respect linked to freedom of expression and to the freedom to protest. All commitments which are on the one hand understood to be necessary for optimal learning and discovery, and on the other, the least that is owed by the university to the community at large, in acknowledgement of the privileged place which such institutions enjoy in the social and economic fabric of the country. From that laboratory, then, emerge graduates like yourselves, and innovations and insights of all kinds that will help the world beyond the university become better and brighter. I noted earlier that McMaster was recently recognized as Canada's most research-intensive university. And many of you graduating this afternoon will have had a role in the groundbreaking research that is conducted in our institution every day. Your professors are world experts in a wide range of fields, and they're dedicating themselves to solving the world's greatest challenges, from antibiotic resistance and cardiovascular disease, respiratory illness, autism and diabetes, to climate change, to globalization, and to the need for alternative energy sources. In the McMaster nuclear reactor, scientists are developing nuclear tools for medical diagnosis and treatment, providing the world's largest supply of radioisotopes for the treatment of prostate cancer, and assaying turbine engine blades for every passenger jet engine operating in North America. And now, thanks to a number of very generous gifts from our Chancellor, McMaster has also become a leading venue for the study and mitigation of a human challenge none of us can escape: aging. And that is appropriate, given that our university is home to some of the world's largest health cohort studies, following communities in this country and around the world to examine patterns in health and wellness from conception to death. In all of these areas, and many others besides, the McMaster community is serving the national and global community beyond its walls. Social analysis and innovation born here is bringing benefit to communities everywhere. Studies in culture and history are deepening the global understanding of what it is to be human, a point made to you by a valedictorian. And creativity fostered on our campus ripples outwards, enriching life here and abroad. The work of McMaster, in short, is to advance the health and well-being of human beings and communities in Canada and across the world. And that is a singular goal to which all our various disciplines contribute, and in service of which they come together. In closing, though, I want to talk about all of you as the critical means by which the work of this university community is mobilized to help create a brighter world. As I've already noted, many of you have played important roles in the research enterprise here at McMaster, and in that sense, you have indeed already made an impact. This may be especially so if you've been involved in community-engaged research. Probably more of you have had the benefit of experiential learning opportunities in the Hamilton community, co-op and clinical placements, internships, service learning, and so on, through which I hope you have come to understand the extent to which your personal growth and prosperity has a symbiotic relationship with the evolving health and well-being of society at large. That is the main point which I wish to leave with you today. Despite my having noted several times that universities enjoy a privileged position to some extent apart from the communities in which they reside, it is a fact that whatever privileges they enjoy are conferred upon them by society. Universities have autonomy because society believes it is important that they do so, not because it is their right or because it has been ordained from on high, but because the complex ecosystem within which personal fulfillment and community progress are held together requires it. So take care to remember that you are part of that ecosystem. And that is something that is not necessarily easy to do on celebratory occasions like this, when we are celebrating your individual achievements, when standing out from the crowd seems the measure of success. There are more than 1.7 million students studying in Canada this year in 96 universities. If you consider that overall only 28% of adults in this country have a university education, graduates like yourselves are joining a minority segment of the population. Furthermore, you are graduating from an elite institution. McMaster University is currently ranked 66th out of approximately 24,000 universities worldwide and stands thus in the top 1% globally. And it is one of only 4 Canadian institutions included in the world's top 100. All of this means that you are today graduating with an enormous personal advantage. And compared with the majority of your peers in this country and across the globe, the odds of success are very much stacked in your favor. It is vital to remember, however, that while your success reflects very positively on your individual abilities and talents, your success is also a communal triumph. It has been made possible by the many communities of which you are a part, beginning with your families and friends, extending into your school as well as this university community, and outwards into the global community where, tragically, the success of some comes at a price paid by others. It is only reasonable, then, to ask you as you leave this place to see your personal fortune as inseparable from and forever dedicated to the communal good. We are immensely proud of you, and we do have great faith in your ability to make this a brighter world. Thank you very much, and good luck.
Congratulations to the class of 2017. As a fellow alumni, I'm looking forward to seeing where you go from here. As Ms. D'Angelo said, you're all now graduates and members of the wonderful group of alumni. I'm slightly biased in thinking we actually are rather special, and I can't say how pleased I am that so many of you are now joining us today. All of our speakers today have given us a lot to think about, and so luckily enough, I'm not going to give you any words of advice. But I just want to reflect and pick up on the point that President Dean made about we're here to celebrate today your achievement as an individual. You come from communities, you couldn't have done it, and most of you would say, but I couldn't have been here without my parents' help. I couldn't have been here without the support from my friends here at the university. I couldn't have been here without the support I got from my professors. And that's all very true. And I'm sure that as you went along the way, as Sir Rory said, you got very good advice. In some case, when you were very young, it was probably more like orders. But as you grew up and as you began to understand who and what you were, the decisions were yours. And it's taking that advice and knowing what you are and what you become that has allowed you to stand here individually to get your degrees. And I think it's always very important to remember that today, much as we like you as a group, we are honoring you as individuals. And as you go forward into society, it is your individual decisions that will make the difference to society. You're part of a group, but you can't do groupthink. And so I wish you all the very best as you go forward. So congratulations to each and every one of you. I would ask that you please remain standing at your seats until the academic procession and the graduates have left the hall. And finally, please join now in the singing of our national anthem. After the singing of the anthem, this convocation stands adjourned.